Hi, this is Senator Justin Reedy coming to you from Annapolis as we enter the fourth week of the legislative session. This week we'll be tackling a number of important issues, including dealing with debate on possible overrides of Governor Hogan's veto. Also, the State of the State address will be happening this week. But one of the biggest issues that we face every session, and it's really the only issue that we're constitutionally required to deal with, is passing a balanced state budget. Governor Hogan has proposed a state budget that actually, it's really great. It spends less than 1% more than last year. And if you take out the impact of federal funds that is in that, the governor's budget, the state dollars in the governor's budget, we're actually spending less state money this year under his proposed budget than we spent last year. So it's a very fiscally austere budget. It does not raise taxes. It still funds education at historic levels and also funds disability funding at the proper levels. So there's a number of important things that it tackles and does, but it keeps spending very restrained. It keeps spending basically level. The governor has had to do that in part because the General Assembly faces perpetual state deficits in what we call the out years, the years that we're looking ahead. The reason that we constantly deal with deficits, despite the fact that, as you know, we had dozens and dozens of taxes and fee hikes under Governor O'Malley, despite that, the General Assembly kept piling on top of those tax and fee hikes more mandated spending. Basically, the governor doesn't have the opportunity to just look at the whole budget and say, okay, let's start from baseline and decide how we're going to fund things. There are a number of different categories where it's mandated that spending must go up 5% or 2% or 3%, no matter what's happening in the economy or what's happening with our revenues. I have a chart here that I think is very interesting, and it shows starting in fiscal year 2019 and moving through to fiscal year 2022. So those are a few years in advance. The problem that I was just talking about. The red line is mandated spending increases that are mandated by law. The green line is what we project our revenues to be during that time. And you can see that there is a gap every year. Some years it's bigger than others, but there's a gap every year between what we are expecting to take in, and the estimate is over 3% growth, which is pretty strong growth to project, versus mandated spending increases, which are between 5.7% and 4.3%. So we have this gap. Governor Hogan, so every year we're starting behind the eight ball. Governor Hogan has proposed mandate relief, and what his legislation would do would be give the governor, whoever they may be, some flexibility to be able to make targeted cuts and reductions to be sure that we're staying within what we're bringing in. His legislation actually wants to tie mandated spending increases to our revenues, which is what every family or business budget is based on. You don't plan to spend more than you take in. Not surprisingly, the governor will meet fierce resistance on this because there are special interest groups and other folks who like to be able to count on more and more money every year. And they say, if you only increase my budget 2% instead of 4%, well, that's a 50% cut. But it's not a cut. You're still getting more funding from last year. So we're going to work together. We're Republican senators. We're going to work together with Governor Hogan to be sure that we can enact his responsible, balanced budget that does not increase taxes. We want to set the stage for greater tax relief to bring down the cost of living for working families. And we want to be sure that we can close this gap between projected revenue and projected spending, because that's what we're down here for. That's what you send us down here for, to make tough decisions, to balance the state's books, just like we have to balance our own checkbooks at home. Until next week, I look forward to hearing from you. Please feel free to contact me with the information provided. It's a great honor to serve you in Annapolis.